Hello and welcome to ELITETV. You're watching Open Debate in English. I'm your host, Chongtham Amrita, and today we bring you the topic, Deep State in the Manipur crisis, with a big question mark. The ongoing violence in Manipur has stretched on for nearly 20 months, defying all kinds of solutions or any attempts for solutions, despite repeated assurances from both the government of India and also the government of Manipur. This crisis has not only shaken the public confidence but has also sparked discussions on potential external influences with claims of foreign hands and also a shadowy operations of the so-called deep state. In December 2024, BJP National Spokesperson Dr. Sambit Patra made a bold accusation linking American billionaire with infamous for even ruining many economic of even starting economic problems. So George Soros linking him with the deep state and attempts to destabilize India. These claims gain weight considering factors such as the abnormal cash inflows into Manipur and the involvement of certain charitable organizations and even geopolitical dynamics in neighboring Myanmar. The point to be noted here is that George Soros is an individual who has many foundations and organizations worldwide, including some of it in Myanmar as well. And before the military coup in 2021, he was frequently visiting the country of Myanmar. And then after the military coup, his accounts in the country of Myanmar were again seized by the military junta. So today we aim to explore the plausibility of these claims, that the role of the deep state and the steps necessary to restore peace and stability in Manipur. Is there any feasibility for that, or how far these claims are true? So to discuss and debate on this matter, let us take a moment to introduce our panelists for tonight. Our first panelist for tonight is, and our first speaker is renowned journalist, editor for Ifal Review for Art and Politics, and author Oja Pradip Phanjoubam. Oja, welcome to Open Debate. Our second speaker for tonight is Oja Dr. Naorem Bobo, media spokesperson for Delhi Meeting Coordinating Committee. Oja, welcome to Open Debate. And our third speaker for tonight is renowned independent researcher and an expert on geopolitics, Dr. Rakesh Puyam. Oja, welcome to Open Debate. Okay, I'll start with Oja Pradip. First of all, Oja, we all know that there is an intense geopolitics going on in Myanmar, and we also know that the crisis in Manipur is also linked with this unrest in Myanmar in many ways. So the deep state, there is a characteristic, the specific characteristic of the deep state is just to exploit a vulnerable political situations, political states, and to push for some agenda. Now, we know that there have been talks about foreign hands trying to grab some agenda or trying to grab their own in the northeast, from the northeast, especially starting from Manipur, considering the unrest that we have now. That's almost coming to close to 2 years now. So there has been claims that to destabilize India, it will start from the northeast, and especially northeast, the violence being the violence in Manipur being such a hot spot for that. I think it is now very clear that even if there is a deep state to destabilize India, it will start from Manipur. It's in fact becoming true. So Oja Pradip, first of all, what do you think about these claims? Do you think that there is any semblance to it, any truth to that?
When you say deep state, you have to name which country, first of all, because when you say deep state, it's not something which is independent. It has to be the deep state of America, deep state of Germany, or deep state of India, like that. So I was not able to really get what you're saying. Are you saying the deep state of which of India is playing a game here, or?
At this point, with the context of what we are discussing, we are trying to name that the deep state of the United States. because with the inauguration of Donald Trump going to start in a few minutes today, he also stated earlier that after he is sworn in the office, that he will dismantle the deep state as well. And also with the claims of deep state being well entrenched into the Indian politics, especially in Manipur, considering the geopolitical dynamics of Bangladesh and Myanmar. So in that context, it is the American deep state that I'm speaking about.
Yeah, so when you're talking about the American deep state, you have to also look at what interest they have. It's not like the deep state is independent of the country. So they will have to have an interest here. So we'll have to look at what interest America has in this part of the country. And they've had a deep interest for a long time. First, it was especially during the communist movement, when the communist movement was expanding. They had a very deep interest in having a base in this region, and they have found a convenient place in Pakistan, and Bangladesh was Pakistan at the time, so they based themselves there. And also from Bangladesh, they had they even commanded one airport called the Comilla, which is still there, which was a military base and all that. But now, for a long time, they were using that airport with the permission of Pakistan, and they were actually operating from there to train Tibetan fighters to fight against Mao Zedong's China, because America's hostility was basically against communism at the time. So they were fighting against the communist regime in China, and also the communist regime was still very new, and they had the Kuomintang fighting the communists, Chiang Kai-shek and Chiang Kai-shek's party, Republican Party, or known as the Kuomintang, and they were also helping Kuomintang. The only thing is that when they were doing that, they had some problem, because the Tibetans were not very happy with Chinese, whether it's Kuomintang or the communists. For them, it didn't make too much of a difference. So that problem was there. But the fact is, the Americans were using this base to actually transport Tibetans from Tibet quietly, surreptitiously, and they were also using another base in Nepal called Mustang. And from these places, they were actually operating to undermine the Chinese government. And this went on for a long time. They were transporting people from Tibet to Kamala, and then Kamala to Okinawa to Saipan, where they were training these Tibetan rebels. But it went on for some time. It didn't work too well, because the Tibetans had different agendas. As I said, they were not happy with any Chinese, whether it's communist or Kuomintang. And that kind of difference came up. But besides, they were playing that game. And ultimately, the great game, this deep state, American deep state, has its own interest. It's not like they just want to help Tibetans, or they want to fight Chinese. It's their own interest. What they thought was their interest. So what happened was, in the 1970s, especially when Kissinger was the Secretary of State. Mm-hmm. He was Secretary of State under so many different presidents. In America, you're allowed to do that, because the Secretaries of State are actually appointed by the elected president, so they can have anybody. So Kissinger was there for a long time. He was there during Nixon's time, and Nixon's time was when they played a very dubious game. They were doing that in Tibet. And then later on in 1970s, the Chinese and the Russians, they had a little bit of rift, and the Americans noticed that. So all this while they were fighting the Chinese communists, fighting Mao Zedong, suddenly they turned around and they befriended Chinese, the Chinese, just because they had a little bit of difference with the USSR. America thought USSR was the bigger enemy, so they immediately jumped to befriend China. And we remember, in 1971, Nixon actually visited, the president of America actually visited China, and there he met Mao Zedong and all that. Before that, Nixon was, not Nixon, Kissinger was actually communicating with Chiang Kai-shek, the prime minister. Mao was the chairman. So they befriended China, and that's when they left the Tibetans on their own. And they did the same to the Kuomintang. Kuomintang, they had about three divisions based in the Shan state of Burma, and the American CIA was actually helping them. Then what happened was after this changeover, they said they cannot help them anymore, but they will not do anything to undermine their position. So they have to look after themselves. So that's when the Kuomintang started the opium business. They had to finance themselves. So the Kuomintang soldiers there in Shan State, they were the ones who actually initiated the Golden Triangle, the drug base. And what happened was, after some time, they knew that it was not possible to defeat China anymore, the communist China anymore. So the soldiers left and they went to Formosa. And Formosa is the earlier name of Taiwan. So they went and settled there. And the drugs infrastructure that they left behind in the Shan State were taken over by the warlords there. And we remember the name Kunsa, who was the most powerful at the time. So he took over all that trade. He became very, very powerful, very, very rich, and all that. That's how the deep state worked. And the deep state, as I said, you cannot see it independently of the government in place. The government has to have that same interest, and which is why actually the deep state is part of that government. They cannot, things that they cannot do overtly. Overtly, openly, they can make diplomatic ties and give advice, or even if they're helping certain governments, they have to do it openly through trade means or as assistance. And also because by then the United Nations had been founded, and any country having some kind of dispute or relations there will be noticed by the United Nations. So they had to do it covertly, and this is how the deep state grew. And the Americans were, of course, the top after also the Russians, the USSR. They had the KGB, and the Americans had the CIA. And so they were operating behind the scene, doing what their people want, what their government want, but not openly. That's what the deep state is about. So it is quite likely that is happening in Myanmar now, because Myanmar, again, right now what's happening is there's a big rivalry between the Americans and the Chinese. Once upon a time, they were helping the Chinese. Now the Chinese have grown and they've become very powerful, and they become rivals of the U.S. And so the U.S. want to undermine them now. So they've been trying to actually circumspect them, put them within limits. For instance, when Huawei came out with 5G, America actually blocked 5G being installed in Europe and all that, because they thought that the Chinese would take over. Now, and also, they were waiting for other companies to also come up with 5G. That kind of thing was happening. The deep state was working all the while. And now what's happening is Myanmar has become very, very important for China, because China needs a land route to the Indian Ocean, because from the Indian Ocean you can reach the Arabian Peninsula as well as Africa, which are big resource centers for China, and they don't have any other routes. So they're trying to make two routes. One is land routes, that is. Otherwise, if these routes are not there, they have to go the roundabout way, the South China Sea, and then come down to Southeast Asia through the Malacca Strait. So they normally call this the Malacca dilemma, that you have Malacca, it's a roundabout route about 3 times longer than what you would be if you had a route through Myanmar. And not only that, the Malacca Strait is actually under the control of the U.S. So if they have some disputes with the U.S., and if the U.S. blocks the Malacca Strait, then Chinese will have no route to the Indian Ocean. So they have been trying to open 2 routes. One is to Myanmar, they have actually made a pipeline from Sittwe, Kyakfu to gas pipeline to Kunming, and they are also building a road there and a railway line, fast high-speed rail to Kyakpu port, which is Kyakpu is a deep sea port, and that's where they have more or less leased that place. This is again in the Arakan state, the Rakhine state. So the controlling the Rakhine party, that Arakan army has also become very important. So there would be the suspicion, because you don't see the deep state working. The suspicion is that the Americans are also working to get control of these rebel groups, so that they will be in control. And China, of course, has been doing that all the while, because for them is an existential question. You have a route to uh, Bay of Bengal, not just Bay of Bengal, but the Indian Ocean, you have access to so many other places which you need to be in. So they have built two routes. One is through Myanmar, and the other one is through Pakistan, the, through the Karakoram. Apparently, the Karakoram mountains are very difficult, and moreover, Balochistan and Pashtuns, they are out of control, more or less out of control of the Pakistanis. So it's a difficult route. That route they can take, and they will. In fact, they have also leased the Gwadar port in Pakistan so that they can reach the Indian Ocean. But that route is much more difficult. As I said, the mountains are much more difficult, as well as the rebellious communities, the Baloch and the Pashtuns. They have to pass through their territory, so that becomes, and these communities are not under the control of the Pakistani totally. So that's one of the problems. So they have they focus their attention on Myanmar, because Myanmar, they already have relations with so many of the ethnic groups as well as the military. So they think it is much easier for them, and in fact it is easier. But the thing is, if China and India were friends, they would not have this problem, because it would have it much easier for them to access the Indian Ocean through India, through Sikkim, and then come down to the Siliguri, and then to Bangladesh and the Bay of Bengal. That would have much easier. But India and China are not friends, so they have to look for Myanmar as a route. And since China is interested in Myanmar, America also, as a rival, they are also trying to probably, we don't see it, but then we know from indirectly that probably they are also trying to sabotage China's easy way to the Indian Ocean. This is what the great the new play is about, between the deep state of USA, and also because China has come so close in Myanmar. India is also uneasy, which is why the border fencing, as well as the free movement regime cancellation, as well as the protected area permit. I think these are we here in Manipur tend to see them as influenced by Manipur's trouble, but that is not the case at all. Not maybe some bit of it is there, but then the major concern for India is that there are big powers coming into Myanmar, so they have to be careful. It's not so much about Manipur or Mizoram or Nagaland. They just need to be careful about the border so that these influences don't spill into in India as well. This is what we have to be careful about, and this is what the Indian state is also worried about, and also probably using its own deep state to monitor the game, as well as to augment the game in its own favor, which is what many of us are saying is happening, and the people who are bearing the brunt are those in Manipur and the border state. Right now, Manipur, because Manipur there's already a big trouble. So this is what the new game of the deep states of these countries are having on the impact of this rivalry is having on Manipur.
Very good point, Oja. You have briefly mentioned all the histories related with that, and also conveyed the larger interests of the American policies regarding South Asia and also Southeast Asia, with all the geopolitical dynamics coming up currently. Thank you for that, Oja. I will come back to you in the next round. Now, moving on with what Oja Pradip has said, I will move on to Oja Rakesh. So, Oja, we have heard from Oja Pradip regarding especially how influential and powerful the deep state can be. Regarding setting foundations for future diplomatic negotiations or talks that pushes, or maybe that favors, the agenda of a particular country, especially now that we're discussing the deep state, which is the interest of the American of the United States. So, Oja Rakesh, the thing is that coming back with the context of what's happening in Manipur as well. Now we know that on May 3, 2023, there was a very well coordinated, a very well planned, a very well choreographed even attack that carried out both in Churachandpur and as well as in Moreh. We know that a lot of Hindu temples were even strategically attacked. They were especially targeted to be burnt and attacked so that people could be driven out as well. So, so considering all of that together, Rakesh, do you think that even though the Manipur's unrest could be linked as a separate incident, do you think that this is also part of that whole deep state influence and planning of what we're discussing just now? Rakesh, what do you think about that?
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank our panelists and especially ELITETV for inviting me. It's a great opportunity to share my thoughts on deep state and current crisis situation in Manipur. Especially to start with, I would like to emphasize the fact that Pradip has covered on the issue of great powers fighting over touch. Myanmar has now become the battleground for these major powers. So this geopolitical contestation for influence and control over resources and key goods for trade and other economic activities in the region, especially in the Bay of Bengal area. It is one of the most interesting and also dangerous game. Looking at and also we are in a kind of a trap situation, especially for the people of Manipur and for other northern states. In the coming days, if things turn out, bad, the situation in Northeast India could be worse than what we are seeing right now. So to start with the deep state, involvement in what is happening in Myanmar and especially in the case of Manipur, first thing that I would like to highlight is that there are experts who have commented on the Manipur violence, the Manipur crisis, as a spillover effect of what is happening in Myanmar since February 2021. And also there are concerns, within Manipur regarding India government's, measures taken so far in order to bring normalcy back to the state, despite having the largest number of, armed forces and paramilitary forces, including the state police. India government is not in a position to tackle the situation so far, and there are voices coming from different circles criticizing, the delaying tactics or the indifferent attitudes, and most importantly, the silence of the Prime Minister of India regarding this, violence in Manipur. So, in the beginning, you mentioned about the, frequent visits of George Soros to Myanmar and his interest in the region. So, coming to that point, what I would like to mention is that George Soros has been, widely debated and discussed nowadays. He's a very powerful person. The External Affairs Minister Jaishankar has mentioned that he has stated that George Soros is a rich, old, and dangerous man. So that shows the deep influence that someone like George Soros has in the world affairs. It's not just about Myanmar or any other country in the world. Many countries have suffered. It is reported and claimed that many countries, including Sri Lanka, Thailand, Indonesia, Japan, United Kingdom, and many others across the world have suffered because of his influence and other activities, done by the, people like George Soros. So why did he visit Myanmar, frequently before the military coup? That is a very interesting question for us to, dig deeper. My take is that George Soros had a, professor at London School of Economics named Karl Popper. We have, read his book Open Society and Its Enemies. It's very interesting, work by Karl Popper, and he was a professor of George Soros at London School of Economics. And Interestingly, George Soros has invested about, he has donated, not invested, sorry for the mistake. He has donated about 32 billion US dollar, on Open Society Foundation, which was established in
Right.
1993. And this Open Society Foundation is working for supporting the cause of pro-democracy movements. There are many areas where this foundation is working, including in India, in different sectors like health, education, funding scholarships, fellowships, things like that. But what is interesting here for us to look at deeper is he visited Myanmar, and Myanmar has been in news for many years, and especially it is about the military junta for democracy movement, especially led by National League for Democracy. Yeah? But this Open Society Foundation, with its keen interest in promoting democracy in Myanmar, has something to do with the ideological contest in the international order at present. To recall an incident when I was working at the Indian Council of World Affairs as a research fellow. There was a lecture given by a famous Chinese professor of international relations, Yan Shuitong from Tsinghua University. And during his lecture, he tried to keep aside the fact that the world is becoming ideologically contested, with US and China leading two separate camps. But when I raised a question regarding this matter, especially pointing at the US official documents which reflect the ideological tone, especially to start with the US Indo-Pacific strategy, he tried to ignore that, but he kept it open-ended without any conclusion. But he was not trying to, he was not willing to take that ideological contest, and that was a very interesting thing during that session. So why I'm mentioning this incident is because China doesn't want to get trapped in an ideological confrontation with the US, like what happened during the Cold War, with Soviet Union leading the socialist camp and the US leading the capitalist, liberal capitalist camp. So that scenario is happening right now in the world in a new Cold War situation, though it is different from what was happening during the Cold War in the 1990s. This is something that we cannot ignore. There is an ideological angle to this. So George Soros visiting Myanmar and his interest in Myanmar may have other, agendas. But one thing is supporting the pro-democracy movement. And we all know that he has keen interest in making money. And in his interview, I've come to learn that he's one such powerful, wealthy person in the world who thinks himself to be God, who is there to create a world that he wants. And he said that he is there basically to make money, and he does not and cannot look at the social consequences of what he does. So this is a very interesting statement from this powerful person that we are talking about. So he's not willing to take the responsibility for all the consequences of what he is doing and what he had done in the past, but he is basically making money, and his actions for making money is highly criticized. And one thing is that he wants to make profit out of chaos,
Right.
and conflicts. That
Right.
is the truth. And that is one key angle that we need to look at, even when we talk about Myanmar or any potential of such happenings in parts of India or in India as a whole. And another key interesting aspect is the importance of natural resources, especially minerals such as the rare earth minerals and oil and gas resources in Myanmar. So people like George Soros, they are hunting for such profitable ventures across the world. It can be oil, natural gas, rare earth. So he may have different interests other than the ideological standpoint of supporting the pro-democracy movement in Myanmar or elsewhere. So these are the things that I want to highlight. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, Oja Rakesh. I think you mentioned a very interesting and very important point regarding funding a chaos, funding a conflict. So on that note, I'll take that note to Oja Bobo. Oja Bobo, I'd like to ask you, and I'd like to know from you, is that we know how from Oja Pradip that how covertly the deep state works and how influential they are. So mainly they work on spreading rumors or even funding and even influencing certain groups that push their agenda. Now the thing is that a few years ago there was a newspaper report saying that there are some kind of mysterious funding in Manipur. It was reported by the Financial Intelligence Unit, and it was said that there was some kind of a funding through some sort of a game in Manipur. Now the thing is that regarding the rumor, we can recall that the army chief also said that regarding the instance of burning the centenary gate of the Kuki, so-called Anglo-Kuki War centenary gate, it was in fact a rumor spread by the Kuki community, and it was false. But then again, it sparked the whole fire that is still burning in Manipur. Now focusing on that 2 points, and also coming back with all the statements that the army chief and all the big authorities of the country that has said in the past, with so many great minds in the country still having knowledge of such kind of inner workings in the state, in the country, why are they still not able to drive them out or even try to bring a solution for such a long-ended conflict in Manipur? Oja Bobo, what do you think about that?
Amrita, firstly, I would like to say good evening to our respected speaker. Yes, as we all know about the conflict in Myanmar, and there has been playing a lot of big players in the game. So, in Manipur context, what is our preparation? That is the most important thing about what is happening for the last 21 months, which has been going on the conflicts. See, let us focus to in Manipur. As Tamu Pradesh has already stated that Manipur is in a big trouble. And when you see the Kuki Joe community who are claim themselves to be, say, like the Israeli, the lost tribe in some another sense, and most of them are already in the Christianity. So, in the name of religion, there may be some fundings which has been already seen, many part of the places which have been funded by some of the missionaries from the Western country or from the American missionaries. But if we come into this, then there is a lot of geopolitics which is happening in Myanmar. And so India is also playing a big political game like the Look East policy. So as our speaker has already stated, China has been looking for the two routes, and as well as for economy that which have been coming into a very big political game as well as. So in my view that this is a game which has been going on after this Cold War. It's a new play of politics, or new play of war, new players of playing of this economic in these Southeast Asian countries. And what will be the fate of Manipur? This is the most important that we need to know about it, especially to Meitei communities. So they have been dividing many countries in the name of religion. Like see in the North Korea and South Korea, the conflict still is going on. So we should be in a very deep. We should analyze it so that may not happen in Manipur. So it may be due to this the game which has been going on till today, that we have been literally separated. So we should focus on this, not on that let's say in Myanmar they have this Mr. George who has funded or who has had visited that, but he is a man known for that, the man who can broke the Bank of England. So he is famous for that. So he knows how to invest and how to take out the economy, or how to take out the country's wealth and resources. So we should be very careful on this view, and as our speaker have already stated on briefly, that lastly I would like to come on to Manipur context, that it is a high time that we should know where is the border which have been guarding by the Assam Rifle, but we have not able to visit there for the last 21 months. So what is going on in practically, we should also analyze it very deeply. That I would like to state on this first.
Thank you, Oja. Really, indeed, there's a lot of questions regarding the transit at More, and why regarding the transit and the FMR and the border area. There is so much speculation on that. So we'll come to that again if time permits. Oja Bobo. Moving forward with this debate, I'd like to come to Oja Pradip once again. That in just a few hours, the U.S. presidential inauguration will take place, and Donald Trump will be sworn in. So earlier, as I mentioned, he had also highlighted that it was a very big headlines. He said that he will dismantle the deep state in the United States, and we know that he is at odds with the deep state even from the first term when he ran for office, and he won ultimately, and he was against, despite all the bets that was placed by the deep state, he won ultimately being the 47th president of the United States, and then he is coming back in office once again. So Oja Pradip, according to you, do you think that he may be able to do such dismantling thing that he's talking about? And even if he is successful at that, will there be some kind of impact, especially with the context of Manipur, in such a state of Manipur, which is bordering with becoming such a battleground towards in South Asia as well as in Southeast Asia even. So do you think even if Donald Trump can dismantle or even cut the hands, at least the reach of the deep state, that there will be some effects that can be seen in Manipur? Do you agree with that?
No, there's another way of looking at the deep state of any country. They're saying that the continuity of one government to another is actually maintained by that deep state. So they will not do any radical thing which will change the policies of any predecessors. That it continues because of the deep state. Because the deep state, the bureaucracy to their secret agent. Of course, you can give some new direction, some slight changes in the ways they work and all that. Or if you are coming with a radically new diplomacy, then maybe those things will alter the deep state. So what happens is normally, you may at one level you may disagree with what the past government has done, but the governance process normally continues. They don't normally change overnight. For instance, what Joe Biden did after he took over was more or less the same as what Donald Trump did, especially, people are actually saying Donald Trump is close to Russia and all that. But let's see, we will have to see and watch. But he says he is for ending the war in Ukraine. But let's see if he's able to do that, because the deep state is something which works, and you just can't dismantle overnight or change direction totally. If you have to do it, you have to do it slowly, because it's a big, it's like a juggernaut. You have it moving in one direction. It's difficult to actually steer into another direction. It does happen once in a while. As I had said, how the Kissinger government changed the policy, but that it was not even a change, that they were fighting against the communists. But then when they saw a rift between two communist countries, they just took on the side of the weaker, because China was a much weaker side at the time. So they took the side of China so that they can undermine the USSR, the rest of the USSR. That kind of thing was happening. So I think here also, probably the policies will continue for some time, and maybe some bit of changes here and there. And the big ones will be actually in Ukraine. If we see it at all, that that Donald Trump may actually make peace with Putin, and that can happen. But I don't know how, because the American allies will feel left out, and that is also going to impact the NATO and all that. This has been discussed so many times, that the NATO partners are actually feeling a little insecure, that they may enter into confrontation with the US once Donald Trump takes over, and that kind of thing can happen. But it cannot alter things radically, because, for instance, what the US has been looking at Israel has been continuing, whether it's Republican or the Democrats. So I think the thing, because the general concerns are the same. In your domestic policies, there will be some differences, but the general foreign policy has not been, there has not been any radically different outlook to foreign policy between the Democrats and the Republicans. For instance, in Israel, the same thing. The U.S. has been supporting Israel openly. Anything against anything passed against the Israel in the UN, US will veto. That kind of thing has been happening, and I don't think that is going to change. And in Myanmar too, I think the American apprehension of China is so strong that I don't think that Donald Trump is going to change things overnight. Maybe they will little bit of tweaks here and there, and but beyond that, I don't think so. They will be thinking in terms of containing China, and in that process, either woo the military junta there, or else support who they think are powerful amongst the rebel groups. And right now, China is having the upper hand. As I said, for China is an existential question. You have to have control over that place, unlike the others. See, for instance, U.S. will be playing that game in Myanmar to contain China. And for China, it's not the U.S. or anybody. They just want to reach the Indian Ocean. So it's a much more desperate kind of an outlook to that particular project. So the investment that China is making in Myanmar in terms of infrastructure, those things cannot be matched. And I heard there was a seminar organized by the External Affairs Ministry and the Manipur University, I think last year or sometime, there where many of the Indian diplomats were also present. And they were actually acknowledging this, that they cannot match China in terms of investment. Right. So you'll have to be waiting, and maybe also the game that you play will have to be in response to China. You cannot outmatch, because they are pouring in everything, all their energy into Myanmar. And I think that will be the case with the US too. US will try to sabotage that, but they cannot actually go all out the way China is doing. So I think they will be watching carefully, and maybe also there is so much to talk about. They are supporting a Christian state. I can't see any reason how that can materialize. Okay. Because so many things, people talk about the Arakan, this Rakhine state. Rakhine state is not Christian at all. They have 2% Christians there. All the rest of this, Rakhine, the Arakan, all the Chakma, Marma, all those, they're all Buddhist. And also the Myanmar people, they are Buddhist. And very few Christians are there. And they walk across to the adjacent territory, the Chittagong Hill Track. There again, now, of course, is the Muslim Bengalis have grown a little over 50 because they kept encroaching, and the government actually encouraged that population flooding, so that they will have control of the place. Otherwise, this was also a Buddhist territory. And I just looked up recently, and the Christian percentage is again very small, 1.2% or something. The rest are Buddhist and Muslims. And there also, how do you form a Christian state if you have only 2% population? Right. The Chin state, of course, is almost 100%, not 100%, but 98% Christians. But their population is less than 4 lakhs. And then you have Mizoram. I don't think Mizoram would wish to join that state because they are already entrenched into India. And if that happens, I think there's going to be a big problem. And the US will not want to antagonize India at the moment because they have China to fight. So they will try to please India in ways. So I don't think this Christian state is I think it's an imagination. And Sheikh Khalida, the Hasina was actually saying it because she was under pressure. In the last election, she was accused of, there was only 28% turnout or something. So it was a very small majority she got. And then there was already trouble brewing in the country. So she was trying to, I feel that she was trying to divert attention. I don't think she really saw it as a big danger. There must have been somebody approached her for airbase within the country, that could have happened, because probably the US, again, they had a base there in Komila. So maybe they were trying to re-establish such a base so that they can have an overlook of the area where Chinese influence is growing. And of course, in Myanmar, most of the powerful rebel groups, the communities from Kachin to Kokang to Tang to Shan, they are very much in touch with Myanmar. And the wars are supposed to be the best armed, but they are now more or less Chinese. They speak Mandarin there. And then my friend Tan Min Oo had actually visited the place, and he wrote saying that he thought he was in China because even the TV they were watching was Mandarin. They were broadcasting. They were actually watching the Chinese TV instead of the Myanmar TV. So that kind of thing is happening. So very, very close to China. War is also in the Shan state. And of course, the Shans are there. Shans are Buddhists, but they are not going along very well with the Myanmar government. Even when Aung San Suu Kyi was in charge, she was a chancellor. And in the Myanmar constitution, what happens is the party in power at the center can form a government in any state, even if they are not in the majority. So that happened in the Shan state, although the local parties won the majority in Shan state, but Aung San Suu Kyi actually imposed the NLD government in Shan state. The same thing happened in Rakhine state, where Arakan army is. There too, the local party had come out in the majority, and that too was overruled. In the rest of the states, it was the NLD which came to power because they are so divided. For instance, the Chin state is so divided. We think it's one community. There are 54 communities altogether. They're small tribes. It's even worse than what is happening, what is here in Manipur. We have small Mate, Simte, Gangte, all that. They also have it like that. And it's 54 tribes altogether. And now, after this trouble broke out, there were 20 rebel groups which had emerged. Apart from the older one, Chin National Front, they had 20 rebel groups, and 6 of them formed. Now they have divided, they split, and 6 of them in the southern side bordering the Arakan state. They have the Chinland Brotherhood, 6 of them, and they have actually allied with the Arakan army. And on the other side, the remaining 14, they have formed the Chinland Council, and that is actually keeping in touch with the Chin National Front, or the old party, and they are not very happy with the Chinland Brotherhood making friends with Arakan army, because Arakan army, they have big influence in the southern part of the Chin state. Even the Paletwa port, if you take the Kaladan project, for instance, the last stop of the steamer is a place called Paletwa, and that's been taken over by Arakan army. So that kind of thing is happening. So the other Chins are not happy, but the Chinland Brotherhood is actually aligning with the Arakan army. So there's a division there as well. What I'm basically saying is that even if the Chin state is Christian, they are also very divided. Right now they are united because of the common enemy of the junta. But even then, you can see the friction there. So I think we have to study these things much more closely before we pass any judgment.
Indeed, I would agree with studying and watching them carefully. And also, Oja Pradip, thank you for bringing up regarding the points of the US-China relationships and also regarding Sheikh Hasina, because I'd like to pose that question to Oja Rakesh, because recently, not just recently, I think it's been ongoing. I think it's quite public, in fact, that the deep state was indeed involved with the ousting of Sheikh Hasina regarding St. Martin's Island. So, Oja Rakesh, we have discussed regarding St. Martin's Island before as well, and all the strategic points and also the tussle regarding that between especially US and Bangladesh. So, Oja Rakesh, now that we know that the new administration is coming up in the United States, and we know that Donald Trump has also invited the Chinese leader Xi Jinping to join for the inauguration. So, do you think that regarding China, we know that China is now in a kind of a situation where China is a good friend to have, but also a very tricky enemy to have as well. So I think, do you think that US is now warming up to China in that aspect, especially with respect to St. Martin's Island? Because for the US to have to occupy St. Martin Island and build a military base is very favorable for them. But then there is this looming threat from China, especially. So do you think that for that purpose, the US is now warming up to China by inviting him for the inauguration? Because we know that the Indian Prime Minister has not been invited, and even no one from the Bangladesh either. So my question is, do you think that there will be some kind of a shift in particularly in Bangladesh, India, and China dynamics, including the US? Oh, Rakesh, I think you're on mute.
Hello. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a very interesting question, and at the same time very important. I do not want to be conclusive here. We all know that there is, contestation among these powers in this region, in and around the world. Things are not very clear.
Okay.
My observation is that during the first term of Donald Trump, it led to the trade and technology war between China and US, and many allies of US joined with Washington DC to punish China, really to force China to contain China as far as technology and trade-related matters are concerned, and then still going. And China is trying to come up with its own, technology, or trying to, get it from any possible source to catch up with the US. And in some fields, China has done wonderful compared to many advanced Western powers. Say in artificial intelligence, 5G, 6G, China is working on quantum computing, supercomputer, big data, and many other aspects. And also, electric vehicles. Things are moving very fast in China, and they are also working hard on the semiconductor sector, and this is going to be the deciding factor in this technology war. Basically, the competition for technological supremacy, and the issues like intellectual property rights. These are very sensitive issues. So I do not see any major shift in the US policy towards China. And, my personal opinion would be Donald Trump is likely to, work with China to, tone down the, the language of confrontation here and there. But a major shift is unlikely. There will not be any, softening towards China's position. China's interest will be challenged. There will be pushbacks from Washington DC during this second term of Donald Trump, because we all know Donald Trump was, complaining about China's, control over, various manufacturing units. Outsourcing was there. So China was the very word that he had in his tongue during his campaigns. In his first term, he did this, very confrontationist kind of a, position was taken during his first term. That led to, scores of misunderstandings, and there was, voices coming from China which are very radical, that China is willing to go to any extent to meet the challenge from US. So another very sensitive issue is the Taiwan issue.
Right.
So recently we have seen what happened in the Taiwan Strait, with China deploying a large number of its assets, military assets, such as the warships and fighter jets surrounding basically the island of Taiwan, sending a message in the wake of Kissinger's visit to Guam, the U.S. territory in the Pacific Ocean. So this transit visit by the Taiwanese president was kind of a provocation. This led to the unprecedented deployment of military assets by the Chinese around Taiwan Strait, basically encircling, sending that China will go to any extent when it comes to its core issues. So sovereignty and territorial integrity, basically the one China principle is something that is non-negotiable for China. So there are such issues where I don't see any softening on the part of Donald Trump-led U.S. government, Donald Trump-led administration, softening its position on China. Regarding the deep state involvement in some of these developments in our neighborhood, especially in Myanmar and Bangladesh. Yes, the Saint Martin Island issue is very, very important because many major powers will have interest there. As China's rise is something that the U.S. wants to control or contain as far as possible, which Pradip has, clearly stated that China is now powerful. It has its influence in various dimensions. You can talk about economy, trade, technology, military. China is not the China of 1970s or 80s.
Indeed.
China is now capable of, doing things, and is going global with its Belt and Road Initiative, and so that is one thing. But the Christian state, as Pradip has, mentioned, I agree with his take on this matter, that creating a Christian state in this region, in this, geostrategic location, that basically the tri-junction where India, Myanmar, and Bangladesh meet, in any such Christian state, there is not, it's not possible actually. It's a far-fetched kind of a claim. And in this context, what I want to, share with the audience is that we need to be very careful about the information that has been circulated, relating to the Manipur violence or any such, developments in our neighborhoods. There is something called disinformation campaign. And here I would like to emphasize the point made by the former Chief of the Eastern Command, Lieutenant General Ave Krishna, retired Lieutenant General of the Indian Army. He mentioned about fifth generation warfare. He said that what we are seeing in Manipur is, fifth generation warfare. And in this fifth generation warfare, there is less kinetic, warfare involved, and is non-kinetic kind of warfare where information is the, is the weakness. So we know about misinformation, and there is also something called disinformation. Misinformation and disinformation, these two are different. And disinformation campaign is happening, as far as my observation is on this, violence in Manipur, or the developments in our neighborhood is concerned. I would like to, say that there is a huge disinformation campaign involved in all this, in all these developments, all this information circulated by the media houses. These are basically implanted. So that idea of a Christian state in that tri-junction point is one such disinformation campaign, I would like to say.
Indeed,
but
yes, very good point. I think you said that
Saint Martin Island
the Christian state is far-fetched. I think to summarize what you said, and also I think what the two words that you mentioned, I think people confuse it a lot, disinformation and misinformation. And in fact, these two are the favorite tools of the deep state when they use or they use it to destabilize or even dismantle any sort of a system and destabilize a country. Oja, that's a very interesting point, and we're almost short of time, but I'd like to move on to our next speaker just for a few minutes before we end. Now, Oja Bobo, coming back to you, regarding before the inauguration of the President Donald Trump, he was very much against the nexus of arms maker, arms industry, and corrupt politicians. And even though he is someone who is pro-gun in the United States, he still has spoken out against this kind of a nexus with some certain politicians transferring some arms in the black market. And also with that in the context, we know that there have been some sophisticated weapons in the hands of the Kuki militants, and they have been procured through black market via the Southeast Asian nations. Now, if the Donald Trump administration is to be believed of his stance against such corrupt politicians and black marketeering of arms, do you think that this impact will reach Manipur ultimately, and also reduce some of the access of the black market, of especially the sophisticated arms in the black market? Oja, we have just 5 minutes left for the end of the program, so I would like to ask you to make your statement short.
Sure, Amrita. See, regarding the statement made by the Donald Trump, see, he may have given the statement is in generally, not as specific in Manipur,
Okay.
but let's see about the Middle East and Afghanistan and Ukraine, which war has been going on for conflict. Many conflicts has been going on. Regarding that, Donald Trump has may have given a statement in generally, and as well as he has already stated that about illegal immigration and deportation from the United States. So a lot of things we can learn from America, the United States. By the Manipuri people. See, in America, there are different communities, and they have met America, United States, and they have different, come from different places from the world. So, as well as in Manipur, we have different communities. If we are sharing each other relation and the ideas, then we can become a united Manipur and go forward. And secondly, that in this big political geopolitical game and this in the race of this superpower, like the countries China, Russia, and moreover all the European countries. So we should not be the sacrifice state of India. That is the point I would like to highlight. Yeah, we should not be the sacrifice state of India, or we should not be sacrificed for this geopolitics in Manipur. We should not be sacrificed for the safeguard of any other countries. What I mean to say, we should not, Manipur should not be divided as in this manner. And lastly, that we have to remember the Kavo Valley also, what it was happened, how it was given to and given back to this Myanmar or the Burma. So lastly, that we should deeply study with our this academician and those who are very expertise in this field, that what will be the way forward in this very political, this geopolitical and the big game which is going on in Myanmar, and that I like to state. Thank you.
Very good point, Oja. Thank you very much for that. And to summarize with today's discussion, I'd just like to just sum up in just 2 lines that as our speakers have highlighted, that the deep state does not work independently or separately in vacuum. And just like that, the state of Manipur, especially for any other states, but with this context, the state of Manipur does not exist independently or even separately. What we're witnessing in Manipur is, even though it is a local and internal issue, this is in fact a reflection of deeper national and international complexities. And by extending this crisis without any resolution, this becomes a fertile ground for such external actors, external forces to just grab in and grab their opportunity to push their agenda, in fact destabilizing the unity and fabric of the state. So I think at this point, when such a big players are encircling the small state of Manipur, I think the leaders should take note of it and also find it in their hearts to find a solution for this conflict that's happening in Manipur. So with that, I'd like to end today's episode, and I would like to thank our speakers once again for joining us and giving us their valuable insights. Oja Pradip, Oja Rakesh, and Oja Naorem Bobo. Thank you all once again. And I would like to thank our viewers for tuning in tonight. We will be back again next Monday with another topic that brings more excitement and engaging for you. So until then, keep watching ELITETV. This is Amrita signing off for tonight. Have a good night.